Hey everyone, it's your favorite host of Gentleman Style Podcast Show. This is Marcus Norman coming to you guys, and we are in for a real treat. This is the moment. This is the moment every podcaster lives for. To interview their someone they admire, someone they respect, someone they hold in high regard. And today I have this gentleman coming to the Gentleman Style Podcast stage to help us do better in and talk about real estate investing, money management skills, mindset skills. He has his own podcast. He has his own mastermind, his own equity firm, and he is doing big things in the real estate market. Huge investor here on the show today. You guys won't want to miss 1 second of what this gentleman has in store for us. So stay tuned, stay with us. Here we go. Hey everyone, it's your favorite host, Marcus Norman, and today, help me, I got coming to the stage, Mr. Bronson Hill. He's the managing member of Bronson Equity, and it's a general partnership in 2,000 multifamily units worth over $200 million. Mr. Bronson also co-leads a large in-person multifamily meetup in Glendale, California, called Investor into Investor. Mr. Bronson is also the host of his own podcast, The Mailbox Money Show. You guys got to check it out. Subscribe. It is full of wisdom, full of knowledge. He brings on experts just like himself to talk about the questions and the passive income streams. And it's real estate, but it's also everything in between real estate. And it's a really dynamic show, really great speakers. And he understands the investor mindset. So who better to help you take things to the next level? Help me take things to the next level. With $40 million in real estate and his ATM machine full deals, Mr. Bronson is changing the absolute game when it comes to passive income. He even wrote the book, y'all. He's an author. Not a surprise. Mr. Bronson is the author of the book, Fire Yourself, Replace Your Working Income with Passive Income in 3 years or less. So this man is busy. This man is doing it all. So help me, without further ado, help me welcome to the stage the incredible Mr. Bronson Hill.
Yeah, all right. I'm excited. I love it. Love the man. I got to up my game here, Marcus. This is really great. I love the intro you've got going on. All the intro stuff, man, and the lights it's just amazing. So thanks for Ed for the warm welcome. So really excited to be here and things I'm passionate about: God, family, finance, and managing yourself. Those are all things that are super important. So gentleman style, let's do it.
Absolutely. I'm glad to have you here. So you're a dynamic speaker. I listen to your podcast. I subscribe to your podcast. I follow you everywhere I can on LinkedIn, wherever, because you are changing the game. You're changing the mindset of our future generation of how we think about money. And so I want to start with a light question. What kicked it off for you? I feel like every entrepreneur, every real estate investor has something that kicks it off and ignites the passion. What was that moment for you? What happened that started this all for you?
So yeah, I was a well-paid medical sales professional. I was working in medical device sales, making over $200,000 a year. I was making really good money. I wasn't working that much, probably working 30 hours a week. So it was a great job. But I think the thing that I didn't have is I didn't have control over my time. And people would say, well, that's kind of selfish, or aren't you kind of spoiled? Or and in the medical field, I saw there were doctors that I worked with that literally made millions of dollars a year, but they were working 80 hours a week every week. And it was hard to take vacations. People in the medical field, a lot of them don't take, it's hard to take more than a week. And so, I looked at my life and I thought, I want to live a bit of a different life. That, Warren Buffett has this quote, and I quote Warren Buffett a lot because I think he's the most successful investor in the world. And he says, unless you learn how to make money in your sleep, you'll work until you die. And ironically, Warren Buffett is in his 90s and he's still working, but he describes it that he gets to tap dance to work, and he's basically doing work on his own terms. And I think that's the thing that's the most powerful thing, when people can replace their living expenses with investment income or passive income, it gives you more choices. You can choose how you want to live. Last year, I was able to travel 6 times internationally. I just got back, as we were talking before the show, trip to Nepal and India, right? So being able to do these things, being able to spend time with family, being able to write a book or do the things that are really important. Everybody says, "Oh, I want to do these things," but most people, 70% of people are working a job they don't like. They're not engaged with it, and it's just what's safe or what they have to do. And the big feeling, Marcus, was I didn't want to be 75, 80 years old and think, man, what would have happened if I had just tried? If I'd actually gone for it and I'd tried, it was like, it may fail, the whole thing may go down in flames, but whereas if I don't try, I would regret not giving it my all. So that's something I think that I'm really grateful that I did. And just like my book behind me here says, I was able to fire myself in less than 3 years. And it's been a great ride.
That's huge. That's huge. That's needed. That's necessary. And thank you for that. That's really epic because I also listen to a lot of Berkshire Hathaway, Elon, not Elon Buffett. I was Berkshire Hathaway. So you're right. And one of the unique things I read I think a short autobiography of him. He had his first kind of investment slash business in investing in pinball machines. Warren
Yeah.
Buffett. So that was a unique thing. And so pinball machines, and now look at where he's at. Like you said, in his 90s, still investing, still working, but working the way he wants to work. Why are people still clinging to the 9 to 5? Why do you still think people are still not realizing after the pandemic, after 2008 market crash, they're still thinking that job security is coming from a job?
Yeah. Well, I think this is gonna be a little controversial. I think a paycheck can be an addiction, right? It's just like a drug where it's like once you get it and you know it's coming in, it's nice to have. I'm not saying if somebody works a job that's they're evil, they're wrong, or anything. I just think that um, I don't know, this culture is really set up to try to have you find safety and security in a job when a lot of times things are not as secure. Even government jobs are not as secure as we think they are, and so everything having multiple streams of income or developing passive income. I had a revelation. I started to look and realize, if I could just have $5,000 or $10,000 a year in passive income or investment income, and just grow that every year, eventually, that income was far superior to other income because I didn't actually have to go work for it. It was like the money or the asset was working for me, and then that appreciates over time. That can be reinvested, and that's how people get really wealthy, right? Is they find ways to leverage not just their do a time for money trade. Even doctors that I worked with that were making millions of dollars a year, literally, there's a time for money trade. But when you get to where you're able to create something that didn't take your time, or you own an asset. I mean, with real estate, you get to own an asset for sometimes less than 10% or 20% down, and the property appreciates by 20%. You haven't increased you haven't increased the assets by 20%. You've increased it by 100%, right? Because the amount you put down was so low. So there are ways out there. There are vehicles out there. There are opportunities out there. And I think it all starts with education, just learning and saying, hey, what would happen? A lot of us, if we lost our job, we'd be relying on unemployment or savings, or something like 50% of Americans would have a very difficult time coming up with a $400 or $500 emergency expense, right? So, as a culture as a whole, we don't really save, we don't really invest. And there's a quote I love, and I don't remember who said this, but I think it was Robert Kiyosaki. He said the poor middle class will live on what they make, or live on whatever they have first, and then invest what's left over. People that are wealthy, they invest first and they live on what is left over. So it's the order that you do it, right? If you're focused on actually investing first, what that does for you is that allows you to develop this passive stream. And then you figure out how to fit your lifestyle into that. And so that's where a lot of great investors start out living very simply and just investing as much as they possibly can. And then over time, it becomes a snowball that they have all these different sources, all these different ways of generating wealth. And I just think there's a lot of power in that.
I love it. I love it. I'm with it. We are talking passive investing, real estate, everything. And we got the man expert here, Bronson Hill, spilling the tea, y'all, on the Gentleman Style Podcast Show. You can find this anywhere. We are on Audible, iTunes, Facebook, LinkedIn, anywhere you get your podcast, Apple, iTunes, Ghana Radio, radio.com, anywhere you get your podcast, we are there. You have to check this man out. He is absolutely phenomenal. So, Mr. Bronson, you got your own mastermind group. So I need some tea here. We need help. What in your mastermind, can you share any tea on what is the group talking about as a good investment today? What's some tips for my audience here?
Well, to be honest, it's been a challenging. The last couple of years have been really challenging in real estate and in passive investing or investing in general. A lot of things that were generating cash flow for a lot of folks have slowed down. A lot of valuations have dropped. We've shifted to a lot more cash flowing investments or businesses. So we have an ATM machine fund that we do. We've got a car wash fund. We've done some other oil and gas, other business type of things. And I think that the question comes: is it better to have appreciation, which just means a lot of long-term growth in capital over time, or is it better to have cash flow? And I've come to the belief that cash flow is what allows you to leave a job, right? When you have cash flow every month, every quarter, it covers expenses and it allows you to be able to support your lifestyle. And so, if you do want to fire yourself, you do want to get to a place where you can um, actually walk away from a job, or at least have the option to. Even if you don't leave your job, you love your job. But if hey, if something happens to me, if I become disabled, if a family member becomes disabled, if I want to travel for a year, if I want to do other things, you have the option to do that. And so I think that, or if there's health issues that come up, whatever. So I think having flexibility is really important. So we're doing stuff, I guess, in the cash flow space, the business space, private equity space. And then we're also looking at some stuff that, is much higher return. It's higher risk, higher return. So if somebody has a certain net worth, maybe of a few $1,000,000, they might say, hey, I want to put 100,000 into a deal that, there might be a 50% chance it goes to zero, but there may be another 50% chance, then it goes 10x, right? So it's an asymmetric return, meaning, it's not like 50% it goes to zero, 50% it doubles. It's like you have a much higher upside potential in these type of deals. So we're doing some of that. We're also finding some stuff that in real estate, there's a lot of, like I mentioned, some challenges there. A great place to be is basically be the bank. And so we've got some opportunities in a debt fund where we basically are providing basically loans for very conservative small commercial real estate at 50% loan to value, and it's pays out a really solid return, and it's backed by an asset. So I think those are things that are are attractive things to look at. I think it really depends on someone's interest. Somebody who's not a high net worth person has different interests and different availability of deals, and then people that are high net worth are looking at different things. And so it just depends on someone's risk appetite and really what they're looking at. But I think there's really no one size fit all. But I think in the cash flows is great. Having things that are higher returns, or even stuff that's just really conservative but solid cash flow is good as well.
Yeah. I want to stick right here for a second because this is good. This is necessary. This is needed, right? Cash flow over appreciation. And so I want to ask you, because you invest in a multitude of different things, you and your mastermind. And so what is it's kind of a two-part question. um, what is your favorite investment? Because you do multifamily, you do all these different things. What is your favorite investment? And then two, what I feel, there's this saying, right? Forget about appreciation. Just focus on the cash flow. That's a thing that I've heard in the real estate business for the past couple years. Is like, what because in the past it's flipped, right? Before the '08 crash, everyone was like, just buy a house, buy a house. So real estate always goes up in value. That was the thing. But now it's kind of flipped on its head. So two-part question: cash flow or equity? Why the flip? And then two, what is your favorite type of investment today?
Yeah. So, again, I talked a little bit about the cash flow versus appreciation. I mean, a lot of money someday is great, but it may or may not be there. And if you do make money down the road, that's great, but it doesn't allow you to support your lifestyle. I think, my favorite investments now, there's some oil and gas products I like a lot. There's some tax benefits there. There's a lot of returns. And I think there's been a huge underinvestment in things like oil and gas, because, and I'm not, anti-green. I think it's great that we're going green. I just think that, there's an interesting book out called The Moral Case for Fossil Fuels, which really reframes a lot of the kind of the green energy movement. That after 100 years, over 100 years of having solar and wind, they produce 3% of the world's power. So again, and there's times where the sun doesn't shine, you can't store the energy, so it's challenging. So we need fossil fuels to help us. And I think that one of the challenges, there's been a lot of limitations from a lot of Wall Street firms that have said we're not going to invest anymore in oil and gas and things that are considered, not, green or clean energy. So I think it creates a real opportunity for private investors. Every estimate I've seen is that usage for oil and gas is going to go up. There's some unfair tax advantages where you can actually sometimes write off ordinary income when you invest and you're a general partner in one of those deals. And as a passive investor, you can still be a general partner in some of these oil and gas drilling deals. So, there are unique investments out there. Usually there's kind of 3 or 4 things people come to us for. One is for cash flow, another's appreciation. So appreciation might be great for a retirement account or something like that, or if somebody has, enough needs. And then another one is for tax benefits, right? So having tax benefits and ways that you can reduce income. I realized for me, when I was making 200K a year, I was maybe paying 50K a year in taxes, but I found it as a real estate professional, as an investor, I could be making 150K and I'd take home the same amount of money because some of the tax benefits. So I think there's a lot of education that goes into it. And I think that, for each person, again, their goals are going to be different. But I think, things that provide a combination of tax benefits as well as cash flow are awesome investments.
Love it, love it, love it. I want to ask the hard question. Cause we talking about taxes now. We just got out of it's past April, so we can talk about taxes.
Sure.
And so, is it true, or maybe you haven't experienced this yet, and you can say, "Hey, I haven't experienced this yet," but is it true that you can pay 0 taxes from investing in real estate?
Yeah. I have a chapter in my book, Fire Yourself, that says how to reduce your taxes to 0. And yeah, I went from paying about a 25% taxable rate to about a 1% taxable rate. And it is possible. There's different ways to do it. I'm not a tax professional, so I'm not giving anybody any specific advice. But for me, there's something called the real estate professional status, or REPS, REPS. So that's an IRS defined thing. If you have a certain number of hours and you work in real estate on a certain level, it allows you to take advantage and use things like depreciation and other sorts of paper losses, which doesn't mean you lost money. It just means that on paper there's a loss showing there, and you can use that against ordinary income, which is really powerful, right? To be able to be like, hey, I'm using this against my ordinary income. So there are different, obviously different opportunities there that you can you find to do it. And there's actually tax strategists. If somebody wants to reach out to me, there's groups that do kind of fee-based tax strategies. So we'll see a lot of physicians that are paying hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars a year in taxes, or business owners, and they can find tax strategists that can kind of help them how to structure it. And there's one story of this, actually, it's interesting. It's in my book. There were 2 medical professionals in California. They were brothers. They owned a couple different medical practices, and the sale of the business was about $5 million. So they were going to pay $2.4 million in taxes, and they got it down to about $125,000. Right. If it weren't in California, they would have got it to 0, but they were found a way to get it down to 125,000. So there are these stories that exist. And I can tell you other stories of people that have reduced taxes. And so, again, there's 2 things. There's tax evasion, which is illegal, right? Tax evasion is illegal. And then there's tax avoidance, which tax avoidance is just, is there a way I can reduce my tax bill? And so there's all kinds of ways to do that. There's all kinds of opportunities. And I think it's important, if people are paying a lot in taxes, to spend time educating yourself on how you can do that.
Yeah. He is not giving us advice to avoid taxes, so this is not legal advice. This is professional conversation. We're just having a conversation. So powerful. Bronson Hill, y'all, the man, the myth, the legend, spilling the tea on Gentleman Style Podcast Show today. You have talked to over 1,300 high net worth investors individually. What are some things you have learned and has stuck with you from talking to so many investors? Is there any kind of common denominators between them all?
Yeah, it's actually over 2,000 now, so it's quite a few.
Whew.
But I think it's interesting. These are all people that the average net worth is over 2 million, and so they're looking for opportunities to invest. So that's why I have these calls. One thing that really impressed me is just that these are people that are learners. A lot of people that are high net worth, they are constantly looking for opportunities to learn about new investments. They're looking for opportunities to learn about ways to grow wealth or reduce taxes. And if you want to increase your wealth, you've got to increase your education. You've got to read the books. You've got to listen to great shows like this, the Gentleman Podcast. You got to listen to things that are going to build you up because that's what these folks are doing. And then another thing too is that there's this thought that people either have money or they don't have money. And Fidelity Investments came out with a report, I think it was in the last 5 years. It said that we have this thought that people are born with a silver spoon in their mouth, but it's just not true. They found that 88%, so 88% of millionaires in the U.S. are self-made. So that means they did not inherit the money, they didn't come from money, they basically figured out a way to make the money themselves. And so, I think that's really encouraging, right? That people that if you're willing to invest in your education, you can grow, you can learn. But really, there are a few things that are kind of commonalities. A lot of these people are very busy people, so they're looking to grow wealth without taking up more of their time. And I find a lot of people think, oh, I need to start investing. So I'm going to go buy a single family house. I'm going to go buy a vacation rental or buy five of them. And then they realize there's a lot of work and then the cash flow isn't there. And so it's finding ways that you can actually grow your wealth passively because there are people that have a money problem, meaning they have money, they just don't know what to do with it to help it to grow. So that's kind of what we do and groups like ours do is they help people find ways to grow their wealth. So that's important. And then like we've talked a little bit before about tax strategy. A lot of people are very interested in reducing taxes or finding ways to shelter. But again, this is all education. It's all networking. It's all finding the right people or the right information to help people get where they want to go.
I love this. I love talking about this. I love talking about money. The common thing that people I always post about this on my Facebook page is if you won $1 million today, what would you do? And people always say, "Oh, I'm gonna start investing. I'm gonna start investing in this. I'm gonna start investing in that." But habits. One thing that I found, I have not talked to 2,000 investors, but one thing I found is people who are wealthy and live well have consecutive, consistent habits. It's the habits, the things you do day in and day out. They are relentless, and they let nothing stop them in achieving their goals. Have you seen that?
Yeah. I think there's a saying that we make our habits, and then our habits make us. I mean, there's so many quotes I have. I've found personally that about 90% of the battle in life is just between your ears, right? It's just right here. It's how you think about yourself, how you think about the world, and a lot of times we're trained to think I could never do that, or I could never. I mean, I started out in medical sales, and then I started raising money. Now I've raised over $40 million from different passive investors. And you'd have told me that years ago, I'd be like, I don't know what. No, there's no way that like how would that happen? But what I realized is I had the limitation. It was in here. It was in my head, and I just had to get through it and realize I can become whoever I want to be. And that's where mindset is a huge piece of you getting to where you want to go. And really, Brené Brown, I love the work of Brené Brown talks about overcoming shame and really getting to a place of feeling worthy. And she said, the big difference between people that achieve great things and those that don't is that the people that do really believe that they're worthy of it, right? If I believe I'm worthy of the love and belonging of others, if I believe I'm worthy of being able to make a difference in the world and be able to raise a lot of money and impact people financially and do big things, then that's going to show up in the way that I show up in the room with powerful people, right? I'm going to show up in a way that, hey, I have this, whatever. And I found that if you can create it inside of you, you show up, the universe, the world will respond to you in that way. And so I think there's a lot of spiritual principles there as well, like as a man thinks, therefore they are. So just working on really creating with your words, using affirmations, creating things that like, what do I want to create in my life? What do I want to be true here? And again, if you can live in a way that you're continually getting a little bit better, you're continually defeating those negative thoughts, you're getting around people that are better than you. There's a saying, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And it's almost in every area of life. If you look at someone's spirituality, their health, you look at their finances, their net worth. Probably look at the 5 people you spend the most time with, you're going to see kind of a mix of that in your life, right? If you want to get to the next level, you've got to get around people that are at the next level, or that are 10x of where you're at financially, spiritually, emotionally, all these ways. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there, no matter where we're at, to evaluate and just to create the life we want to create.
Absolutely. Love it. Love it. Love it. I think recently I've been looking at private jets. But I'm not around anyone that owns a private jet yet. I think it was like Grant Cardone. Cause Cardone is extreme, right? He's 10x, 20x, 15x. You gotta go big or go home. And I
Right.
think Grant Cardone is the one that said it, where he was like, he wanted the private jet. He worked his butt off to get the private jet, and then he got the private jet, and now he's like going around people who's been in the private jet industry, and now they have certain types of private jets. So now
Right.
he has to get around those type of people to figure out, well, I got the private jet, but it's not that one over there. So it's constantly like leveling up to get where you want to go. But I got to get around people that have that mindset. I'm not even around people that have private jets. I just listen to great podcasts like yours, like Mailbox Money Show, and I listen to Grant Cardone and Berkshire Hathaway and all these people. And I just like, now my mind is like, do I want a private jet or do I want a yacht? Now it's like mind blown, because I never would have thought about this without the experience and the expertise of experts like yourself. So it's really, really just osmosis, just being around type of people where you want to go, and really powerful, really, really powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. I think on that note, it's interesting for our listeners, like, think about yourself, that when you come up against something and you just think, I could never do that, I could never be that, I couldn't have that. And you just think about, where does that come from? Like, it comes from typically when we were a kid, somebody told us we couldn't have something, we couldn't afford something. And it's all just a story. None of it's true. But yet it's true because we believe it, because we come from that place. And again, there's a lot of great people like yourself, Marcus, and people listening, I'm sure, that are like, hey, I want to make a difference in the world. I want to really impact people, and I want to have this kind of lifestyle, and I want to really play a big game and live a big life. And I think what comes from that is just continuing to push yourself to think and dream and visualize bigger. And there's a spiritual principle too, right? Whatever things you ask for in prayer, believe you received them, right? You're actually visualizing the things that you want, right? So I think if anybody's read the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, he says, spend something like 15 minutes a day or 5 minutes a day, just imagining the person you intend to become. Dr. Benjamin Hardy talks about this idea of becoming your future self now. What does it mean to look into the future about who's this person in 3 years, in 5 years? What happens when they walk into a room? What's the type of person, the presence that they have? And so if you want to change that, you can change that. You've just got to be very intentional, because otherwise life just kind of continues on, and we live this reactive life. We react to life rather than us creating the life that we want. And so that's something I've been really interested in, is just, how do I continue to create the life I want and be proactive?
So true. So true. Amen. Dr. Hill. I'm gonna call him Dr. Hill, y'all. Like he is Dr. Hill today on the Gentleman Style Podcast Show. Sir, I'm gonna put you on the spot. There's no shade. There's no shade here. But I want to ask, what is your habit when you visualize? What is your secret? Is it visualization? Is it meditation? Is it a big hookah in the back of your notebook case? Like what's your secret? What do you do to visualize yourself hitting that next milestone and that next level?
Yeah, I do a few things. I think there's practices that I try to do every quarter. I get away for a couple days and I just try to really reflect back on, okay, what progress did I make in the last 90 days? Where do I want to go? Each year I have some big, hairy, audacious goals I set, and usually I achieve about half of them. But like, I achieve way more than I would if I didn't. Have goals, and so I think there's a huge thing to having goals, writing them down, reading them each day. I do affirmations. I create, there was a time in my life about 7 years ago, I went through a divorce, unfortunately, but I came through this divorce and just felt no sense of self-worth and just felt total lack of confidence. And so what I started to do is really create affirmations around things that I wanted to be true about myself, right? That I'm loved, I'm worthy, I'm chosen, I'm called, God's got a plan for my life, all these things. And I literally read those things every single morning. I have 14 affirmations that I read, and then I've got some things where God has interacted in my life, and I go back and I remember these 11 things that have happened. And then I read my goals every day, right? So I do my personal mission statement, I do my values. So again, I feel like the more I do this stuff, the more it reminds me, well, this is who I am. These are my values. This is where I'm coming from. It doesn't matter what I'm seeing right now in my life, because this is the person I'm showing up to be. And so that's a way, it's just a form of meditating on truth, right? Everything in the world changes, it shakes, there's health issues, there's finances, there's economy, there's weather, there's all kinds of things. But if you can set yourself up each day saying, this is who I am, this is what I want, this is where I'm going, and these are the things that I'm speaking over myself to be true. It didn't happen right away. I didn't feel this overflowing confidence right away when I started doing it, but about a year after my divorce, I started to really feel that it came from the inside, right? It was like, oh, I have this now, that when I show up, it's coming from the inside because I created it with my words. And I really started to just visualize it and see it. And it began to show up in every area of my life.
Love it. Love it. And did I hear you correctly? I'm sorry about the divorce, but did I hear you correctly? So have you remarried?
I have not. No.
You
I'm single dad. I've got a daughter who's 11, and I have her half the time, and just really enjoy spending time with her. And I do hope to get married again one day, but I also am enjoying my life a lot. So it's got to be the right person, and I'm patient for that.
So ladies, he's single. That's the word on the street. Sharp guy, handsome guy.
Screaming ladies in the studio. I don't know where that is in the room there behind you or something.
So check him out. That's Bronson Hill, the man, the myth, the legend, grand poobah of the real estate game.
I need a funny hat. I need a funny hat to be the grand poobah there.
That is awesome, awesome, sir. I heard a rumor. I forget where I got it. I think maybe your book. Check out the book, y'all. But you think saving money is foolish? Tell us why. Is that, first off, is it true? And tell us why.
Yeah, I think in the environment that we're in, I think saving money is foolish. And again, this is a little bit controversial, but I think personally, I think inflation is, for a while, we were above, they were saying officially 9%. I think we were actually above 15%. And we just look at the prices of what things cost. You can just go around, you can look at the grocery store, you can look at just the price of just about anything. And it's about, I wouldn't say twice, but at least 50% more than what it was 3 or 4 years ago, right? So how does that happen? It's not just things are costing more, it's that they have created more currency, and we've experienced inflation pretty significantly. So I think, again, the question is, do you keep money in the bank and wait for a rainy day and wait for this perfect investment to come around? Or do you invest in something now that is a good deal, that's putting money back in your pocket, that is something that's getting you moving? I'm of the opinion that I would rather, and I think Grant Cardone also says this, which we share some things that we like. And I love a lot of the mindset there. He's a little more boisterous than I am, for sure. But I think the idea of just continually going broke, right? You're basically continue putting money in deals and things that you can find cash for, things that are going to be worth more in the future. And then over time you make more money and you find ways to invest that. And so I think that's a principle of people that are very wealthy, is that they'll find a way, like I said, to invest first and then live off of what's left over. So again, I'm not a big fan of just having $1 million in the bank and just live. It's you're losing money. The inflation tax, even if you're making 3 or 4% or 5% per year, you're actually losing money. I think there's an official inflation rate, and there's the shadow stash inflation rate, which is actually substantially higher than what it is. It could be even currently at the time of in May of 24, as we're recording this. It might be 8 or 10%, right? Which is way higher than what they're saying it's 3% or whatever nationally. So I think having money invested in assets that appreciate over time and have an inflation hedge is a better investment than leaving money in a bank.
Love it, love it. There you have it. His words. And I recently had that happen to me as well. Someone was asking me, "Hey, Marks, can I borrow some money?" And I said, I don't have it. It's all tied up in investments.
Yeah.
And they didn't understand that. They didn't understand. I mean, I have money for like the basic things, right? Car repair, that type of stuff. But as far as like cash that I'm just sitting on, I don't have that. Right.
Yeah.
and people it blew the person's mind because they didn't understand what I meant by
Yeah.
it. And I
Yeah,
was like,
all the high net worth people I know, they tend to like, they don't have any money. It's all tied up, right? They're worth millions of dollars, but they don't have no money. So it's kind of
it's
funny.
it's not sitting. Yeah, it's not
Yeah,
sitting. It's
yeah,
not sitting. It's just it's tied up somewhere. Give me some time, and maybe I can move things around and shift things around. But they're like, no, you that's crazy. But it's true.
yeah,
It's real.
yeah,
I
absolutely.
I have fallen into that trap because as you can see the craziness behind me, I am actually in the process of selling my house. And so what do you think is gonna happen? Just your opinion, no professional advice here, but just your opinion. What do you think is gonna happen with real estate market? You think because right now it's like it's a seller's market and real estate, do you think we're heading to another '08 cycle? Do you think real estate's gonna flip on its head? Do you think things are gonna stay the same? What are your thoughts on that?
It's hard to say exactly. My crystal ball is broken, but I do think it's interesting with low rates. There's people I know that have a 2.25%, 30-year mortgage. A lot of people have very low mortgage rates, and they're not going to sell, and so that's why real estate generally has stayed. It really hasn't come down. It's come up slightly in value actually since the last couple of years since rates have risen. It's hard for a first time or new home buyer. But I think what's going to happen, a couple things. I think because of all this, creation of new currency, I think over time, real estate is going to continue to appreciate. I think if rates drop, it can actually cause real estate to appreciate more. But there's just a reason. A lot of people can't sell because they can't lose, the asset is no longer the home, it's the loan, right? So if I were to go buy a home right now, my rate is typically 7 to 8% on a 30-year mortgage. But if somebody's at a sub 3% loan, they're not going to sell. I mean, what you're going to sell and you go buy somewhere else at 7 or 8%, your payment's going to be way more. So they'd rather rent out or do something else with the current house they have. So I think for single family, obviously real estate it's not one asset. There's many different assets. You have in the city, out of the city. You got single family, you got multifamily, you got large multifamily, you've got office space, you got retail, you got all kinds of different things. So it's hard to make it a global prediction, but I do think in general, they're not creating any more land anywhere, right? So I think in general, over time, as population growth happens, and especially if rates do start to come down a little bit, I think it will put an upward pressure on pricing, and a lot of the prices for a lot of stuff will go up. So again, I don't know the timing of that. It could be 6 months, could be a year, it could be the next couple of years. We just kind of have to wait to see what's going to happen. Probably after the election, we'll start to see some more movement on rates coming down, I'd imagine.
Absolutely, absolutely. I love that. That's true. I'm like I said, I'm about to be sitting on some cash, so but I'm taking all of this to heart, and I've taken some other ideas to heart. And it's like you don't want it sitting, but you also don't. It doesn't make sense in that regard with the higher interest rate. That 3%, 2%. That's me, right? So I bought my rental properties when the interest rates under a VA loan, so the interest rates are really good. And so, yeah,
Yeah.
that's me. You were talking to me at that, at that moment.
Good. That's great. That's where everybody wants to be, right? Is to have all those loans that are super low and then be in a higher interest rate environment. And so I think right now we are seeing some creative financing things where people will do a seller carry or people will sell in unique situations. But to be honest, I think it's a challenging market right now to buy new real estate. And that's why we've shifted to do some of these alternatives that we find cash flow. And I don't find too many deals right now that you can go buy with minimal or modest funds down as a down payment and actually cash flow. I can't think of very many where that actually you can initially cash flow, except very mildly in certain cases. But there are a lot of business or other sort of private equity, other sort of things that do cash flow very quickly. So I think as an investor, it's like I don't love real estate. I love what real estate does for me, but I love being able to look at different assets and find out what makes sense right now to invest in. Right, there are certain things that make a lot of sense to invest in over other things right now.
Absolutely. So if someone wanted to get started, they're sitting on money, hint, hint, wink, wink. And what do they need prior to seeing you and making an appointment with you and your team? What should they have? Is there a minimum, maximum? What's a minimum amount they should have? What's a maximum amount?
Yeah, so we typically say, I mean, we typically work a lot with accredited investors, which means either a net worth of $1 million outside of your primary residence or somebody has an income of 2 to 300,000, depending on if you're married or single. So those are typically high net worth people. We do have some stuff for non-accredited investors. Happy to have a call with anybody just to kind of touch base. But for our deals, again, if somebody has a net worth of over 250,000 or 300,000, sometimes you could consider being a passive investor. But for me, I was making good money. I didn't have a lot of savings, and I was invested in different things. But what I decided, for me, it was better to be an active investor than a passive investor. Right? Passive investing meaning I invest and I get the mailbox money, which is the name of my podcast. We talk about these topics and different assets and things that are out there. And so that's a passive investor. So people that, again, have more money than they have time. It doesn't make sense for a physician who's making $500 an hour to go, manage and swing a hammer and even manage a property manager, right, of single families. So they may want to look at investing passively. If somebody's not, and they're like, hey, I don't have the money, well, you can raise the money, you can find deals, you can partner, right? So that's, for me, how I did it is, I learned, okay, I can actually raise money and I can help other people get where they want to go, rather than just me having to do it all myself. And so that was a big mind shift for me. And Robert Kiyosaki, who wrote the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, he said, it's actually selfish to only use your own money, right? It's like, if you can help other people and use their money, other people's money, it can help them get where they want to go as well. So you can kind of align interests there as well. So there's lots of different ways to do it, but I think the first thing is to figure out, do I want to be active or do I want to be passive? If you want to be active, we do some coaching for people raising capitals. I'm happy to chat about that. There's other groups that do that as well, or help people find deals or kind of operate them. And there's people that just want to be passive. And so we have calls with people like that all the time. So again, just it's figuring out really what your goals are and where you want to go. So
super dope. He stole my next question.
Just pull it out of your mind.
He stole my next question. So I was going to ask, because I know a lot of people in this situation, how can someone get started in real estate if they don't want to be a landlord? And you kind of alluded to some of that, so they can do other things. Can you touch on that a little bit more, just to sink that thought process in, for guests who want to get into real estate, but they don't necessarily want to be answering phones for clogged toilets at 2 a.m.?
Yeah, so that's why I talk about in my book, Fire Yourself. So I talk about that on the shelf behind me. It's on Amazon. You can pick it up, or But basically, it's going through that profile of, what are my goals? What I want to do. I had a small single family portfolio of 4 or 5 houses, and I realized it was a lot of work. I wasn't the property manager; it was out of state, but still, I was getting the calls every week. I was, hey, this tenant didn't pay. Hey, this property got damaged. Hey, this certain thing happened. It was just a lot of work, and so I realized. And this is kind of a litmus test for those that have investments. Let's say you have a rental house or 2 or 5, or you're invested a certain way. The question really is, can you 10x your current strategy, right? Can you, if you have 3 houses, could you instantly go to 30 and manage that? And be okay with it, even with a property manager? A lot of people are like, oh my gosh, that's just way too much. Well, then if that's the case, then what you're doing is not scalable. And that's where scalability is really important, especially for high net worth people, right? Again, it depends. If I don't have a lot of money, if I'm working a modest job and I'm making 50K a year, well, there's ways I can learn how to help people that have money to invest, right? I can find deals, I can operate them, I can raise money. Those are some great ways to do it. And they're finding out, you find ways to network and bring people in. That's what I did, right? That's what I do. And then, but again, if somebody is higher net worth and you're making pretty good money, you like your job, whatever, you've got some savings, maybe you have a net worth of 500,000 or $1 million or more. It's like, well, maybe it's time to look at, say, you probably will get way better returns or the same returns, and you won't undervalue your time. Because the challenge I'll find is, like, somebody who's a high earning person will say, well, hey, no, I make all this money and I'm getting a 25% return, whatever. It was like, well, how did you value your time in that? Did you pay yourself what you would have been paid normally at work? If you made $100 an hour or $200 or whatever it is did you pay yourself that amount? Well, I didn't really count for that. Was it? Well, then probably you didn't make as much money as you thought, right? So the idea is really having something that's scalable, having something that you can grow, And if you have, either you have the money or you have the time. And if you don't have, like at the time I did, I didn't really have either, but I just made the time. I just said, okay, I'm going to hustle. I'm going to do my 40-hour week job, 40-hour week job. And I'm going to basically spend 30, 40 hours a week just building this other thing. And eventually it will find a way to overtake and go from a side hustle to the main thing. And it did. So I'm really grateful for that. But I think, again, it's just getting really clear on where you're at and what your profile is, and whether you're going to be someone who has more money and so you're investing passively, or you're going to invest your time and find ways to grow value that way.
Huge. The legend himself. I am fired up, y'all. This is huge. And this is goals for me. So it's a bit selfish, but I get to speak and really learn from the master himself. Again, I subscribe to his podcast, The Mailbox Money Show, incredible podcast. I will be scheduling a call to talk to him and just brainstorming. I'm not accredited, but I need to surround myself with people doing better than me. Mr. Bronson, sir, you have given so many nuggets this episode, and this is huge. This helps. This really changed the mindset shift this episode. And so I just, you've left so many nuggets here. Do you have one more in the hat for that young man out in the audience who's just struggling? His back is against the wall. He's really struggling to break past that last barrier on whether he should invest or not. Do you have any words of encouragement for him?
Yeah. I think, this has been a treat, man. I really appreciate you having me. It's been a lot of fun. Love the all the questions you've asked and all just the excitement you bring. So thanks for bringing this to your audience. And I think that I have a theory that in life we face many challenges. There's a spiritual principle here too, right? There's many hardships, many challenges we go through, and a lot of times just on the other side of, oh my gosh, I'm ready to quit, I'm ready to give up, is a breakthrough, is something awesome, is that connection that you need, is that first deal, is something else. And so, if you really commit to something, that's what I had to do, is I had to commit and say, you know what, I'm going to do whatever it takes to get to this goal, because I see it being worthwhile. It doesn't matter how long it takes, whether it takes me a month or it takes me 10 or 20 years, whatever, like I'm going to get there because the goal is worthwhile. Right. And so if you keep the end in mind and you just keep going for it, you'll get there. And now I wouldn't say, I've seen people do this and they just kind of keep, they don't really make changes. But if you can keep the end in mind and then just continually change your approach, that's a Tony Robbins principle, right? You have the end goal in mind and you just keep changing your approach. You'll find, oh, this worked, but not really, or this worked for a little while. This isn't working. It didn't work. Okay, this really worked. I'm going to double down on that. And then you'll find a way to move forward. So I think just finding a way to keep the end in mind, go for it, and just keep changing your approach. You'll get there.
Love it. The Gentleman Style Podcast mascot. He said the magic word, y'all. Keep going. Keep pushing forward. Keep striving for greatness. You can achieve anything you set your mind to. Sir, how can my audience connect with you? How can we find with you? How can we grow with you and learn more?
I'd love it. So my website is bronsonequity.com. We have some, resources on there. We've got some freebies, some guides and giveaways. And then you can check out my book, Fire Yourself, at Amazon. And if somebody's interested in investing, you can click the join button at bronsonequity.com and learn more about it. But man, it's been a lot of fun being here, and I look forward to connecting more with you, Marcus. It's been great.
Absolutely. Connect, y'all. This is serious. This is our future, right? The future is what you make of it. So change it today. Choose to go after your dreams and live. This man, I wish I had the picture. I should have stole the picture. But the man was in the Maldives the other day. Like, he was just living it up. Single man, loving life's beautiful scenery. Change your life today. Get the book on Amazon. Fire Yourself. All right, y'all, we gotta let him go. This man is changing lives. He's changing the world. We gotta let him go. He has many more deals to take down and many more investors to talk to. But like we always end every show, take care of your friends, take care of your family, and always take care of business. This is Marcus Norman, your favorite gentleman, and the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Bronson Hill, signing off. You guys take care. Love ya.
Thanks, Marcus.